I stared at my reflection in the elevator's polished doors, adjusting my simple navy blazer. The annual Harrison family dinner awaited on the penthouse floor of the Grand Plaza Hotel, and with it, the inevitable judgment, subtle digs, and not-so-subtle comparisons to my more successful siblings. My name is Emma Harrison, though my family barely acknowledges it these days. To them, I'm just the disappointment, the one who threw away a promising career in investment banking to become a consultant. The elevator chimed, doors sliding open to reveal the opulent penthouse restaurant. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing light across marble floors, and floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of the city skyline. My brother Marcus's choice, of course. He always did have a flair for the dramatic. Emma, my mother's voice carried across the room, perfectly modulated to convey both acknowledgement and disappointment. We were beginning to wonder if he'd show up at all. I forced a smile, navigating between elegant tables toward my family. They sat at the best table in the restaurant naturally. The Harrisons never settled for less than the best, except when it came to me. My father, Richard Harrison, barely looked up from his phone. My brother Marcus, the golden child CFO of Harrison Global Enterprises, sat with his perfect wife, Catherine. My sister Olivia, the ruthless corporate lawyer, tapped away at her laptop while somehow maintaining perfect posture in her designer suit. "Sorry I'm late," I said, taking the only empty seat. Client meeting ran long. "Oh yes, your little consulting business," Olivia smirked, finally closing her laptop. "Still giving advice to startups that'll be bankrupt in 6 months." I took a sip of water, refusing to rise to the bait. If only they knew that my little consulting business involved restructuring multinational corporations and advising on billion-dollar mergers. But I had learned long ago that trying to explain myself to my family was pointless. Actually, my mother interjected with false brightness. "We were just discussing Marcus's latest achievement." "Tell her, darling." Marcus straightened his Italian silk tie, practically glowing with self-importance. "Harrison Global is about to acquire Wilson Technologies. $50 million deal, set to close tomorrow. Dad's letting me handle it personally." "Impressive," I murmured, though I already knew all about the deal, more than they could imagine. "That's what happens when you stay committed to the family business," my father finally spoke, his eyes still on his phone. Instead of running off to play entrepreneur, the waiter arrived with champagne, clearly pre-ordered to celebrate Marcus's moment. My mother raised her glass. To Marcus, carrying on the Harrison legacy. Everyone clinked glasses. I merely watched, remembering a similar dinner 7 years ago, when I announced I was leaving Harrison Global to start my own consulting firm. "You're making a mistake," my father had said, his voice cold with disappointment. "You'll never succeed on your own." Marcus had laughed. "Consulting, that's what failed executives do when they can't hack it in the real business world." Now, as my family basked in their self-congratulation, I thought about the documents sitting in my office at Phoenix Consulting Group. Documents that would make tomorrow very interesting indeed. "So Emma," Catherine's sugary voice cut through my thoughts, "still single? You know, my friend runs a lovely little bakery. Maybe you two could commiserate about small business challenges?" I bit back a laugh. My last client meeting had been with the CEO of Asia's largest tech conglomerate, but sure, let's talk about bakeries. "I'm focused on my work," I replied simply. "That's the problem," my mother sighed. "All work and no life. If you'd stayed at Harrison Global, you'd have real opportunities. Status. A chance at marriage." Speaking of Harrison Global, Marcus cut in, swirling his champagne. "We're restructuring the consulting division. Looking for someone to handle smaller clients." He gave you what he probably thought was a generous smile. "If you're tired of struggling on your own, I could put in a word." The irony was almost too perfect. I checked my watch. In exactly 18 hours, they would discover exactly how tired and struggling I really was. "I appreciate the offer," I said, carefully keeping my voice neutral, "but I'm quite happy where I am." Olivia snorted. "Happy? Living in that tiny apartment, working with failing startups. When was the last time you even closed a meaningful deal?" If she only knew about the 3 multinational mergers I'd orchestrated last month alone, or about the real reason Wilson Technologies had agreed to sell to Harrison Global. My father finally put down his phone, fixing me with his stern CEO stare. "Emma, this pride of yours has gone on long enough. It's time to admit you made a mistake and come back to the family business, before you waste any more of your life on this consulting fantasy." I thought about my office. The real one, not the small decoy office my family had once visited. The gleaming headquarters of Phoenix Consulting Group occupied the top 10 floors of the city's most prestigious business address. My personal office was larger than this entire restaurant, with views that made these look modest. But they didn't know that. They didn't know that Phoenix Consulting Group, hidden behind layers of shell companies and subsidiaries, had become the most powerful consulting firm in the business world. They didn't know that their precious Wilson Technologies acquisition had only happened because I wanted it to. Most importantly, they didn't know that tomorrow, when Marcus proudly walked into the closing meeting for his $50 million deal, he would find himself face to face with the truth about his failing sister. "You're right, Dad," I said quietly, standing up. "Maybe it is time for things to change." "Finally seeing sense," he replied, satisfied. "Come by the office tomorrow. We'll discuss your return." I smiled, gathering my things. "Actually, I already have a meeting scheduled at Harrison Global tomorrow. The Wilson Technologies closing." Marcus frowned. "What are you talking about? That's a confidential transaction." "Is it?" I shouldered my bag. "We'll see." "Emma," my father's voice carried a warning note. "What did you do?" I was already walking away, but I turned back one last time. "You always taught us to dress for success, Dad. Tomorrow, I'll make sure to wear my best CEO outfit." I left them sitting there, confusion slowly giving way to dawning realization. Let them stew overnight, wondering what their family failure had been up to all these years. Tomorrow, when they discovered that Wilson Technologies wouldn't sign their contract without the approval of their exclusive consulting partner, Phoenix Consulting Group, they'd finally understand. When they learned that every major decision Wilson had made for the past 5 years had been guided by my firm, their world would shift. And when Marcus walked into that closing meeting to find his little sister sitting at the head of the table, not as a small-time consultant, but as the CEO of the most powerful consulting firm in the business, the look on his face would be worth every dismissive comment, every condescending smile, every family dinner spent being treated like a failure. I stepped into my private car, nodding to James, my driver of 6 years. "Home, Ms. Harrison?" "No," I said, thinking of the morning to come. "Take me to the office. I have a family meeting to prepare for." The next morning, I arrived at Harrison Global Enterprises an hour before the scheduled closing meeting. My executive assistant, Michael, had already prepared the conference room according to my exact specifications. "The Wilson Technologies team arrived 10 minutes ago," he informed me, falling into step beside me. "They're waiting in your private conference room on the 50th floor." My private conference room. In my family's building. The irony wasn't lost on me. "And my family?" "Your brother Marcus is in his office on 48, practicing his acquisition speech. Your father's stuck in traffic. Olivia just arrived. She's reviewing the contracts in the main conference room." I nodded, smoothing down my tailored Armani suit. Not the cheap knockoff Catherine had once accused me of wearing, but the real thing. "Have security ready. I expect things might get emotional." The Wilson Technologies team rose as I entered the conference room. CEO Jack Wilson smiled warmly. "Emma, or should I say, Miss Phoenix?" Phoenix was the name I used in business circles, keeping my identity as Emma Harrison carefully separated from my role as CEO of Phoenix Consulting Group. Until today. "Jack," I greeted him with a firm handshake. "Everything ready on your end?" He patted the stack of documents before him. "Just as we discussed. Though I must say, I'm looking forward to seeing your family's reaction, especially after what I observed at dinner last night." I raised an eyebrow. "You were there. 2 tables over. Your brother Marcus never even noticed me. Too busy boasting about his big acquisition, I suppose." Jack shook his head. "I couldn't believe how they treated you, knowing I was about to sell my company based entirely on your recommendation." "They don't know," I reminded him. "Not yet." At precisely 9:45 a.m., my phone buzzed. Michael's message read, "Your father and brother are heading to the main conference room. Olivia's already there." I turned to Jack. "Shall we go surprise my family?" The main conference room of Harrison Global was designed to impress with its 20-foot ceiling, mahogany table, and panoramic city views. My family sat at one end, looking like a corporate power portrait. Marcus at the center, father on his right, Olivia on his left, all radiating confidence and authority. Their expressions when I walked in were priceless. Marcus recovered first. Emma, what are you doing here? This is a private meeting. Is it? I set my briefcase on the table. Jack, would you like to explain? Jack Wilson stepped forward, enjoying his role in the unfolding drama. As I informed your board last week, Wilson Technologies will only proceed with this acquisition if our exclusive consulting partner approves the terms. My father's face darkened. What consultant? We weren't informed. Phoenix Consulting Group, Jack interrupted smoothly. Specifically, their CEO, who has guided our company's strategy for the past 5 years. Olivia's legal training kicked in. She shuffled through her papers, pulling out a document. That's impossible. We have no record of any consulting agreement between Wilson Technologies and this Phoenix Group. Actually, I spoke up. You'll find it on page 394 of the due diligence report. Though you probably missed it, since Phoenix operates through several subsidiaries. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Enough. Emma, if you're trying to sabotage this deal because of some petty jealousy. Petty? I cut him off, my voice sharp. Like treating your sister like a failure for 7 years? Like mocking her career choices at every family dinner? I opened my briefcase and withdrew a business card. Not the basic one I use for family visits, but my real one. The one that read Emma Phoenix Harrison, CEO, Phoenix Consulting Group. The silence that followed was deafening. My father snatched the card, his face going from red to white as he read it. This is, you're the CEO of the most powerful consulting firm in the business world? I finished for him. The one who advised Jack to consider selling to Harrison Global in the first place? Yes. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. But, your small consulting business, that tiny office. A front, I explained calmly, to keep my real work private. Phoenix Consulting Group operates globally with offices in 12 countries. We've guided some of the largest mergers and acquisitions of the past 5 years. Including this one, Jack added helpfully. Olivia was frantically searching on her phone, her eyes widening as she found Phoenix Consulting Group's details. $50 billion in managed transactions last year, ranked top consulting firm globally. This can't be. Why? I asked her. Because your failure sister couldn't possibly build something so successful. Emma, my father's voice had lost its usual authority. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I looked at each of them in turn. When have you ever believed in anything I've done? I walked to the head of the table, my rightful place for this meeting. Now, shall we discuss the Wilson Technologies acquisition? The one Marcus is so proud of handling personally? Marcus slumped in his chair. You orchestrated this whole thing. I did. And now this $50 million deal needs my signature to close. I sat down, enjoying the shift in power. Unless you prefer to explain to the board why you lost the biggest acquisition of the year. The next hour was a study in humility. My family, who had dismissed me for so long, had to sit silently while I reviewed the terms of the deal, suggesting changes that would benefit both companies. Jack occasionally smiled, clearly enjoying watching the mighty Harrisons defer to their failure daughter. When the final documents were signed, I stood to leave. My father caught my arm. Emma, wait, we need to talk about this. Do we? I gently removed his hand. I think 7 years of dinners where you talked enough about my career choices. But now that we know about Phoenix, now that you know I'm successful, I interrupted, now that you know I'm not the failure you thought I was. That's not how respect works, Dad. I gathered my things, then paused at the door. Oh, and Marcus, about that offer to join Harrison Global's consulting division, I think I'll pass. I'm quite happy being CEO of my own firm. I walked out, leaving them to process their new reality. Michael fell into step beside me. How did it go? Exactly as expected, I smiled. Though I think we'll need to decline any family dinner invitations for a while. Later that evening, my phone lit up with messages. Apologies from my mother, congratulations from Catherine, meeting requests from my father. Even Olivia sent a lengthy email admitting she had been wrong about me. I ignored them all and poured myself a glass of champagne, enjoying the view from my penthouse office. The Harrison Global building was visible from my window, looking somehow smaller than it used to. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Harrison. Your brother Marcus is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you. I thought for a moment, then smiled. Tell him he can schedule a consultation through proper channels. Phoenix Consulting Group's fees start at $1 million. I raised my glass to the city lights, thinking about all the family dinners where I'd sat quietly, listening to their judgments and criticisms. They had called me a failure because I chose my own path instead of following theirs. But success, like respect, isn't given. It's earned. And I had earned every bit of mine. The next morning, I received an official consultation request from Harrison Global, signed by Marcus himself. The fee wasn't a problem, he wrote, but could we please discuss this as a family? I forwarded it to my assistant with a simple note: schedule him for next month, and send him our standard non-disclosure agreement. After all, we wouldn't want anyone thinking he's getting special treatment just because he's my brother. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's succeeding so spectacularly that they have to face how wrong they were all by themselves. And as I sat in my office, reading the business headlines about Phoenix Consulting Group's latest triumph, I couldn't help but smile. The family failure had built an empire, and not a single Harrison signature had helped her do it. That was worth more than any family dinner approval could ever be.